Welcome to Community Pulse. I'm Brian Lamore, and today we'll be talking about a potential new program in the Helena community. It's called HELP. It's a Handicapped Employment Living Program. And joining us today is Brian Copeland. And Brian, you're starting this program here in Helena. Now, how did this start? What was your personal experience in that you saw that we need this new program?
Well, it all came in with a little run-in I had with a car on a motorcycle. The car ran into me. I had some pretty extensive spinal column damage, injury to my head, left shoulder, left hip. It took me away from being a dance instructor, combat engineer, firefighter to being disabled. And then I started to discover that there was a few cracks in our system because I started falling in one after another. And I just got to the point where I didn't want to see other people go through what I went through, and I started to discover a lot of resources that were out there. It's just, there was a maze and it needed to be navigated through, and I discovered that the HELP was the way to do it.
Well, describe more about HELP and how it would have maybe helped you in your personal experience.
It would have helped me out by giving me some places of where to go, because I had no clue. Before I was injured, I was so healthy I hardly ever seen doctors, so I didn't have a doctor. I didn't have attorneys. I didn't know anything about what happened with insurance companies and how they handled things. I wasn't aware of vocational rehabilitation or Social Security or nothing or any of that to find out how government works or doesn't work, or what programs were available in the community and which ones weren't. And so I had to learn the hard way.
Well, the HELP is the Handicapped Employment Living Program, and you're starting this up. Now, you're looking for two groups of people. You're looking for volunteers and board members right now.
Correct.
Let's start with a board member. What would an ideal board member be?
Well, it would be nice to find somebody that also had disabilities, because they can understand exactly what the situations are like and some of the problems that they encounter within the community. But as far as a board member, I'd like to find somebody who were professional, that would know how to handle some of the books, to be the treasurer. Because I'm not too good with numbers after having a good bump on my head. The numbers aren't quite there for me, and I'm more of a designer or developer as far as the website and a people person. It would also be nice to have somebody who was informed with the law, knew how to do some of the legal paperwork. I'll get it done one way or the other, but it'd be nice to have somebody there that knew how to dot some of the I's and how to cross some of the T's, so that this was structured correctly for all the government standards. Because this is an agency that also will work with the government and private organizations out there, and the individuals that need help and the individuals looking to help.
So your vision of the HELP program, Handicapped Employment and Living Program, would actually assist individuals through the maze of government regulations and to help meet their unique needs, correct?
Correct.
Of what's out there. So if an individual is thinking, well, I'd like to help out, but I don't know if I'd want to be a board member, you're also looking for volunteers, correct? And what would a volunteer be doing with this organization? Well,
what we do is, if the volunteer happened to have been disabled or handicapped of some sort, we would try to pair them up with somebody who was just about ready to go through what they've already been through. That way it would be kind of like a peer, and they could be like an apprentice master type of thing, where they could show them how they navigated through the system and the most simplified way for them to. A lot of times they may have a specific area that they may be a professional in, and some organization may need that type of a person there. So we'd recommend to see if they could match up with an organization there where they could put their time there. Or we may just have some type of an event or something like that where we need body members to carry carry chairs or something, you know. It just depends. There'd always be a place for a person that was willing to volunteer.
Volunteer. Well, now, Brian, we have your email address and your phone number on the screen, so anybody can call up at any time, correct, and get some more information, because we can only scratch the surface here with this show of
Sure.
where we start with. But now, you have two groups of people here that you want to work with. You want to work with individuals in the community, but you want the community to work with individuals also. How can both these work together? What would you like our viewers to know about how a community can help these individuals?
Okay, our community actually has lots and lots of resources. We have many nonprofit organizations, and there's many philanthropists that are out in the community and volunteers. And if we got them all together and put our heads together and our workforce together, I mean, there's so much we could accomplish. You know, when the disabled bring some of the problems that they're encountering, I mean, it actually, you know, we don't know a pothole's in the road until enough people, complain about it, and then all of a sudden we know it's there, and then we can start to fill it. Mm-hmm. And it takes kind of like a team effort, and that's what this will eventually get to be doing.
Well, now you're also looking at, I know, putting together a database of information. So, but you know, you got to collect the information, but then you have to put it out too. What kind of information would you have in your database?
Okay, basically we're going to break it down into the letters of the HELP program, different types of handicaps. I mean, because there's a wide range of handicaps. There's going to be an employment category. There's going to be a living category, and the different types of program category. Mm-hmm. The programs are going to be like different types of government programs that are out there, and what type of needs they meet and what type of criteria they ask for. So that's what we'll do, is people will be able to go in there and do a search on the web, or they'll be able to call in, or they'll be able to come in, or we'll have an outreach program that will also go out to them and help gather the documentation and see which programs would basically match for them.
Match for them. Well, when you say programs, I think it's a big generalization. We're talking about government programs, aren't we? And how will HELP work with the government programs?
Okay, we'll see what type, like this, every program has criteria that have to be met. Mm-hmm. So sometimes people fall just a little short, or a little too high, or a little bit too high up there. And sometimes all the programs just need to be sequenced in an order. Mm-hmm. So what we'll do is we'll look at them and try to find those people that will fit those programs, and to qualify those people for those programs. The ones that will actually meet their needs. And if the government can't provide them, then there's nonprofit organizations that can provide them, or there's certain philanthropists out there in the community that would be willing to help out these lost souls that have fallen through the cracks.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to understand that you've gone through this process yourself already. That must have been pretty tough.
Yeah, well, it was. I understand why I'm here, and it all made sense after a couple of years. You know, 2 years after I was injured, I asked why, and I received my answer, and that's what this is all about. This is why everything was so tough, so that I could get an understanding of everything going on out there. And it's a good thing I was strong, though, because otherwise I wouldn't be here today.
Well, and hopefully through your efforts, other people won't have to be as strong, right?
Yes, that's exactly what I'd like to see, because what I went through, people shouldn't have to go through.
Yeah.
But I needed to go through it to actually understand it. I mean, sometimes, you know, that's
the way you learn.
That's exactly the way I had to be this person so that I could do what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, the HELP organization, what stage of development is it in right now? What's the state of HELP?
Okay, even though I've been working on this since March 28th of '88, mm-hmm. I'm getting the board members. I have most of my mission statement, all my goals and objectives, I'm writing up my bylaws. I'm trying to stage an event so that I can get community awareness, so we can get some volunteers to get this off the ground running full blast, mm-hmm. and maybe a few government officials that can help me make sure that all my I's are dotted and all my T's are crossed. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to really get an event, and if anybody can help in that process, I would really greatly appreciate it, and so would the community.
Yep. And your email and your phone numbers on the screen. Call anytime. Call now.
And my answering machine will most likely answer it, but if you email me, I will get back to you. And right now, it's only me.
Yeah.
And but there are a lot of other people out there waiting in the shadows to support this, and I have some other really professional executive consultants that will be helping me out too, and they'll help me put this together, and it's ready.
That's great. Well, now, also, for other discussion off screen, you were saying that this would work with the whole person. And people hear the phrase whole person a lot, but I don't know if everybody really understands it. Define whole person for us.
Well, if you go to the Golden Triangle, they're a mental health organization, but they're not really dealing with the physical aspect of the person. Mm-hmm. And if you go to, like a doctor or something like that, he's dealing with just some physical types of things. But really the person that becomes disabled, like a person that's really healthy becomes disabled. I mean, physically, all of a sudden he loses his housing or his financial, and he loses a lot of social it creates this really vicious circle. And you really have to look at the person as a whole and each little part, and you have to work on all those parts. Because if any of those parts are left out, then the person's not going to get any better. Because he's still, in a small, minute way he'll get better, but not in the way that it really has to be done. Because you can't just take a piece of that person to make his life better. You have to look at the financial, you have to look at the physical and the mental and the social, and at the end of it all, the spiritual, because all that's going to be affected.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, too, you're looking at putting together a community resource directory, and I imagine you'd start out with that being a Helena directory, and then eventually you'd like to go statewide. But what kind of organizations, or if an individual is looking at this resource directory, what kind of groups would be in it?
Like Rocky Mountain Development Center, they have tons of programs, some awesome stuff. They do a wonderful job in our community. You have Goodwill, clothing. There's so many that are out there. It'd be categorized in different areas, and it'd be basically dependent upon what they need as to where we direct them first. We try to prioritize their needs, and if they needed food and they're starving, that's definitely one of the first things that they're going to do. And there's food share, there's God's Love. There's all kinds of programs that are out there. So we're not here to reinvent the wheel. We're here to get the wheel rolling, because there's lots of wheels that are already out there. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to tap into the organizations that are already out there, and unless they're overloaded, and then of course we'd provide help with some of the volunteer workforce in order to help them share in the load. Mm-hmm. So we look at a strategy like that. And we'd write any and every one down that's a viable 501c3 or the other different categorizations that are out there for the nonprofit organizations. Because there's so many of them out there. It just helps when you're building bridges between them and roadmaps to them, and making sure that they get transportation back and forth from them.
Yeah, it's so complicated. You start talking about, you got to get the transportation there. You got to look at the whole person. Who provides this service? Well, you're hungry today, but do you have a roof? And how does it all come together? Well, now you have a great big binder there with a lot of great information in it. And I think there is something in there you said that you have about 12 points that you'd like to talk about or tell us about.
Yeah, actually, these are, thank you, you're really good with this. I'm glad you're a professional at this, because this is my first time ever trying anything like this.
This is fun, isn't it?
Oh yeah, but it's really good, and it's really important. This is a really important need within our community, and this is just the type of thing that will service that need. Mm-hmm. So these are some of the types of things that the HELP program's all about. And these are some of the goals and the objectives and what it's going to be doing within the community. So I'll just go through and rattle them off really quick here. Okay, it's basically a volunteer workforce. It's a community service resources directory. It does services matchmaking. We'll be doing lots of campaign events to where we're doing funding drives and community awareness and volunteer recruiting. It deals with some of the basic needs for for some of the disabled, for their basic needs, food, shelter, clothing, by matchmaking. It also works with some of the modern needs, for transportation and communication and utilities, because I'm working with a person that's dyslexic and he's trying to learn on a computer. So, there's certain types of adaptive needs that they're going to need.
Yes.
And then we're going to be working with assistive technologies and adaptive devices, and we'll get into some like credit repair and some debt management for people, because it's terrible. I mean, and for people to make a transition from being disabled and working their financial structure through the credit and first-time home buyers, it's a nightmare. But there are things out there called independent development accounts that we can work with for people but we've got to make sure all of our I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And then we'll be working from homelessness to home ownership and getting into some home-based businesses, because some disabled people will be able to telecommute. And they can be effective over the internet, and they don't even have to leave their home, and they can change from being what are considered deficits on our economy, drawing money from the social systems, to becoming assets and taxpayers and being productive people back out in society again. So we'll also be doing some documentation for them, and standardizing some of the forms that are out there, and doing some interviewing for them, and getting it all together. And we'll create new programs, ones that aren't out there that need to be created. We'll work on helping other people that have those similar type of interests to create those other type of programs to help fill in the gaps. Because this program's basically designed to catch those lost souls that have fallen through so many cracks that they can't go anywhere.
Well, too, as you describe it, it seems that you're looking to be an advocate for the individual to cover all bases, so that there can be, should we call it one-stop shopping? They come to you and they can get led through the system?
Well, there'll be enough volunteers that will be able to do a lot of that, and we'll be basically redirecting them to other organizations that are out there doing that. But if they're stumbling along the way, we'll be there to help.
Well, now you also mentioned that you're looking at putting together an outreach program. How would you contact the individuals that would be available for this, or how would you inform them of your program?
We're actually going to become a very active type of nonprofit. We're going to hit the media all the time. We're going to be going through the media. We're going to be using web. We're going to be using all the marketing technologies that I've discovered for the past few years, and there'll be lots of referrals. There'll be a lot of people coming in. So, there's any type of government organization that's out there that they have questions, there's going to be flyers up in there.
Yeah.
And people are going to be informed. That's what these events are going to be. We're going to be going out there and keep the community informed that we're here.
Yeah. Well, as you need to keep the community informed, keep coming back to Community Pulse, because you're doing a great job here. And it's wonderful to see people that see a problem and they put together a solution. You've obviously put together a lot of time on this, haven't you?
Yeah, well, I haven't. I spent a lot of time laying on doctor's tables, and I had nowhere else that I could go, and I've had to deal with chronic pain and depression, and since this is a worthy endeavor and there's such a need for it in the community, that every little person that I've helped in a small way right now is nothing compared to what's going to be happening. And the joy that I receive from that is just immeasurable.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen for these volunteers, because when you help other people who can't help themselves, you're helping yourself. And it helps the community too. And that's a win-win-win situation for everybody.
Yeah. Well, too, when you started describing about the incident or the accident that you had and who you were, and you've become a new person now. I know you've got an extensive computer background. Did you ever imagine you'd be a computer person?
Never in my wildest dreams. It was all physical. I had a brain, but I never really used it. I mean, it was just it was all physical stuff. And I've also spent a lot of time learning to readapt and to get some of that back. I mean, I'll never get I'll never get back who I really was. And it was kind of like an identity theft, but I like who I am now too.
That's great, and it's been quite the journey to get to this point, right?
Yes.
And you're helping other people to accomplish it too.
And I'd never be who I am now without going through what I went through.
Yeah.
And I have a special empathy or understanding with so many people now that it's really incredible. It really was a curse that turned into a blessing.
Yeah, Just giving a little bit of time, huh?
Yep.
Well, now, Brian, we're drawing towards the end of our show. What are some ideas or thoughts that you would like our viewers to remember about the HELP program and what you're putting together?
Well, if there's anybody out there that can help in any way or have any ideas, please contact me. Let's put our heads together and I'm really trying to get an event that I can bring together the community, the organizations that are out there, some government officials, all in a location to where we can sit down and we can talk about how we can make things better for everybody and help everybody.
Well, you certainly be commended for all the efforts that you've put into this. You've put a lot of time and effort and thought, and now you need to just launch that. We need a little bit of help from our viewers. If you'd like to be a volunteer or a board member, the email site or the telephone number can contact Brian directly. He's pretty well outlined the program here, but he's got a lot more information if you'd like to call him. If you're an individual that'd like to help out, maybe you're going through this process, you'd like to talk to him, he'd love to hear from you. There's a good chance you might get his answering machine, but he'll call you back. He would like to put together this handicapped employment living program starting out in Helena, where you have data resources that you can find out what is in the community. But if you are a handicapped individual, you can get umbrella services. You can have people look at everything you need. Like Brian mentioned, he fell through a lot of cracks, and he doesn't want anybody else to fall through them. So he'll help you, escort you through that program. Hopefully we'll get help up and running, and we'll have him back in a short time period, and you can tell us about the success with the program. Brian, again, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you,
really
Brian.
appreciate
It's been my
having you
pleasure.
here. And for our viewers, thank you for joining us today on Community Pulse. I'm Brian Lamore.